Dörfler Business School, and with some colleagues we have developed an idea of a new school which we call the Strategic Partner School. And you can regard us as kind of academic entrepreneurs in this case, because we want to develop something brand new, and then once we develop it, then we want to try to make something out of it. It is happening in Hungary and in Middle East Europe, and we will use those characteristics as we are developing this education. So, what we want to achieve is to make something for those students who graduated several years ago, so they acquired some basic academic knowledge, and then they gained some work experience, and then they are willing to come back to the school to learn something new on the top of their business professional knowledge, which contains both the business experience as well as some academic background. So we are talking about post-MBA education, which is also post-experiential, and we want students who are already lifelong learners, not only in the sense that they learned what the lifelong learner is, but they are actually doing that as a full-time job. The course that we want to deliver to them is a kind of refresher course, but we need to be very careful with this term in Hungary and in all Middle East Europe, because what refresher courses are usually about, it is not more than delivering the same MBA material in abbreviated version, which means that usually it will not contain everything, and in the best case you have a bit more business examples used in the classes, but no other difference. Otherwise it is just a kind of mini MBA delivered in some way. Now, we don't want to do this, obviously. We want to give them something of really substantial value, as I will explain. We also want to deliver a world-class education, so something that is unique in the market, and it should not be only unique in the Hungarian market, although that is what we are primarily aiming at. The third characteristic that we have of this educational product that we are trying to develop is that it has to have some sort of university background. Now, obviously, if we are these academic entrepreneurs, as I said, we don't have university where it is immediately happening. So once we develop the product, then we are looking for an appropriate post-university. The main importance of this is that we need to deliver something that can be accredited, so that they can get a state-accepted diploma at the end. It is not the primary necessity. It can survive without that, but it is better if it is also an added value. We did some schools without proper accreditation. It works, it can work, students are willing to pay for it, companies are willing to pay for it, but it is not the right thing. So, at the end, if I want to summarize what it will be. So we have those guys who learn something in their academic sort of career, and we have all sorts of criticism to bachelor and master's degrees in business administration and management. But we still find that it is something that is necessary to have for those business practitioners that we are aiming at, because unless they go through that process, they will not have that web of concepts with which they are working. And so we want those guys to have a business degree, plus at least 4 years of practitioner experience. And obviously it is not enough to have that experience, as Leonardo said, that our experience never fails, but we fail very often doing something with that experience. But if they do not have that business background, then they don't have the chance to make out as much of this experience as if they have that web of concepts on which we can build. Now, apart from being good, obviously we are aiming at delivering a course of great value and excellent quality. But apart from that, we also need to look good. In today's world, marketing works the way that it does not matter if you are very good, if they don't know that you are good. So we need also to build that picture. When we started to work on, okay, how to build this product, we realized that the word quasi will be our most important word. The reason for this is that the process of developing this curriculum, the design of the whole school, is quasi-algorithmic. What that means, we can roughly describe it as an algorithm, but it will still contain lots of tacit components. So we are still also discussing many things between each other, which is non-algorithmic. So there will be lots of non-algorithmic small things, although on big scale you can basically draw it as a block diagram, just you cannot really follow that block diagram unless you are part of the process already. The steps in this design process are quasi-heuristic. Now, what that means? Heuristics means that we, based on experience, we can make value judgments and which way to go further. Especially in our case, it is about the exit criteria. When we need to give up a certain part of it or the whole process. And these are very heuristic. But it is not only heuristic because we also talk about it. So there is some sort of interpersonal reasoning also happening. And actually that interpersonal reasoning brings quite a lot of these value judgments into the explicit domain. So we can actually explain why we say that things should be done in a certain way. The educational product, the educational process of the students who attend this course will be quasi-incremental. This leads us back to the old pyramid conception of knowledge, that the new knowledge is always building on the top of the new. Now, obviously, it has to be some of this, because otherwise, if we deliver something brand new, if I would give you now a brilliant lecture on quantum physics, you might understand it here, and then you leave, and 5 minutes later, you would have no idea what I was talking about. Why? Because you cannot connect it to any of your existing knowledge. So that's why we say that it is in a way incremental, but we are also contradicting some part of the existing knowledge, we are shifting some of their previous knowledge, and we are destroying some part of the previous knowledge, so they need to become, to get into this different way of thinking that we want from them. Now, what we want to build overall is a big picture in which the students will gain a different understanding of what they are doing. That is also an incredibly important criterion for the students, because they need to accept that they will learn something that they cannot use tomorrow. That's very tough in the business education, because almost all the business schools are offering recipes that you can apply tomorrow. The particularly brilliant examples are the Porter recipes, usually 2x2 matrices or 5 arrows or something like that, that you can next day put into your corporate report and apply it that way. Actually, the Porter models are very good for teaching. They have nothing to do with building useful reports for your corporation. But what we want to do with them is that they accept that it is nothing of the sort. So it is nothing of the sort that here is a tool, go to work tomorrow, apply. What we want to do is that they gain a new understanding of their overall work, of their overall corporation, everything that is happening. So this reinterpretation, which we can help them with, this is incredibly important. And we were always dancing on the edge of the MBA. So we have a couple of thousands of former MBA students. We were always on the edge of the MBA, on the margin. Why? Because it is very interesting. It is sort of useful, just we don't really see where it will be useful. And very frequently what happens is that students come back 2-3 years after the course. They say, okay, I enjoyed very much the stories that you told us, but actually I did not think that I will benefit any of it, apart from being interesting and I can think about it. And now, a couple of years later, I can actually see that this was the most relevant, most important thing, just it was not obvious from the first day. And finally, we need to validate the product, obviously. So when we design the course, we need to make it valid. Now, why do we call it quasi-validation? Obviously, no kind of objective criteria is available, so you cannot validate it that way. Interpersonal validation is the most important part of it. So we talk to each other, we talk to those involved people, and what we want to ensure is the internal consistency of the whole package, so that it works properly in itself. But it is not all of it. We are also validating the product against the needs of the individual company. Now, this is a very strange type of validation, because usually you are validating, comparing it to many instances of something, and we are working on one-by-one basis with those companies to whom we want to offer the education. Now, after talking so much about what is it roughly, now let's get to some more concrete things. So how we start doing this? It may seem a bit fuzzy at the moment. What we do is, first we want to find new knowledge that would be appropriate. How we do that? Well, our most frequently used source for these kind of things is the Thinkers 50 list, but you have several different lists in different areas. Now, in the Thinkers 50 list, we find lots of people who have very important ideas. We classified the sources that we want to use into 4 categories. The first category is not on the Thinkers 50 list, because they are older than that. They are more frequently philosophers than management thinkers. So we have, for example, Michael Pollan, Karl Popper, Bertrand Russell, and Umberto Eco as the classic gurus. So we talk about 4 different kinds of gurus. Now, the first thing that we find on the Thinkers 50 list is the established gurus. Those are guys who are on the Thinkers 50 list for several years, and they have very, very established reputation of being great management thinkers, like Henry Mintzberg, Charles Handy, John Kotter, C.K. Prahalad, and Gary Hanel. Now, apart from them, we also find a couple of guys who are newcomers to the list. The oldest one of these, longest time on the Thinkers 50 list is Malcolm Gladwell, usually not accepted as a management authority if you want to publish a journal paper or sometimes even with academic conferences. I was told explicitly in a paper, remove Malcolm Gladwell and we will publish your paper. So that's that kind of level. But these guys are upcoming. If they are recognized on the Thinkers 50s, they have a lot to say to the world of management, okay? And we have a couple of others, like one of our new favorites is Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and similar thinkers. If you look at this, it is also on the edge of some kind of mainstream management thinking, but this is on the edge that changes the whole idea of management thinking. These we call the new gurus. Now, there are those who are not at all on the thinkers list yet. We call them at the moment TED stars, because most often we can find them on the TED website. Like, for example, the 2 Daniels, Dan Ariely and Dan Pink. They are some of the people who are obviously upcoming, and we are very sure that they will very soon be on the Thinkers 50 list. So these are our sources. Now, based on these, the conceptions offered by these great thinkers, what we do? We put together the set of ideas just at the moment. We don't do anything, and just put them around. Okay, these are the things that would be interesting to have in our school. And then what we do? We look into the red ocean on the top of the slide. Look into the red ocean, what is offered already in the red ocean? Red ocean meaning the mainstream business schools in your market. If something is already offered there, remove it. Don't compare that you are better at doing it. Doesn't make any sense. Why? Because we are academic entrepreneurs. It's 4 of us. If we include everyone who contributes in any way, we might push it up to 10 people who know anything about it. How you want to compete with a business school if it is 10 of you? You cannot do that. What you want to do? You want to create something completely unique. That's only possible if you are managed to pull together a set of conceptions not offered at all. Now, once you manage to, obviously this is iterative, you see that the algorithm is having all these feedback loops and so on. Once you manage to put together the set of conceptions that is not offered in the red ocean, then you create a kind of concept map about it. What you do, you basically write up about 60 concepts, but it is not only a set of concepts anymore, it is very much a system in the full meaning of the sense. You have all sorts of relationships between the concepts, emerging structures between the concepts and so on. Now, once you have that, that's your map of key concepts. And that's what you are working with for next. So next is to find people who can teach this. Because if you have a brilliant idea in there, but there is no one who can teach it, well, you cannot learn everything yourself and start teaching it, and usually it is not very good if you are starting from scratch and then being just a bit ahead of the students. So we pull together a teaching team, we talk to them who knows what. Obviously, this leads us back to the first step, to the second step, and all sorts of various iterations. And finally, we end up, obviously, we are changing constantly the concept mapping. Now, the map of key concept is stabilized. We have teachers covering almost all of it. And then we also not have any of this offered in the red ocean. What's next? You restructure the concept map and you create what we call the curriculum map. It means that it is not only those concepts, key concepts, connected, structured, and so on, but it is also becoming a teaching material, okay? That's why we call it a curriculum map. And then you obviously also need to validate this curriculum map. How that works? You need to see that it is a wall without any holes in it, so that it forms something that is of holistic substance, and obviously that it is consistent. So you should not have a very large amount of internal inconsistencies. If you are doing something for the doctoral students, it works better. If you are doing it, this is offered as a kind of second master, you don't want huge contradictions in that. Now, once this is done, you have your curriculum. What to do with it? You cannot just give it to the students. If you start offering a course like, here is 4 of us, come, you will get an hour degree. So what? Who cares? How they will hear about us? No, that doesn't work that way. We need to become a cuckoo, and we need to find a host for our cuckoo egg. So we need to put our egg in someone else's nest. Now, the first decision that we made about it, that the nest has to be a university. There are all sorts of different reasons, and it can be different in different markets. In Middle East Europe, you go with a university, otherwise it will not work. Then what kind of university? Very quickly we were able to narrow it down to 3-4 universities that actually can make sense. Then you start negotiating with these, and finally you end up with one who says, okay, yes, we are willing to give it a go. Now, why is it so difficult? It means that your teachers will earn in these courses about 20 times more than how much is offered in a normal MBA education. That's a lot, okay? So these universities are not used to that kind of money. They cannot imagine how much you are charging the students. But if you have been teaching these guys and they know it and so on, they are willing and able to pay that money if you can offer them something that they see valuable. That will be the next step. But you need someone who has the imagination that can imagine that this can work, okay? Otherwise it will not. Now, once that is done, you have the nest, you have the product. What to do then? We go advertise, okay? The first step of this is that you contextualize the curriculum, so you put it into your own context, and the tough part, write a book about it. This, what we are doing here, it is obviously part of that book. What I'm talking about, this process, this is how the book is coming together as well. Okay, so these are all, again, all interrelated and so on. So you write a book and you talk about it everywhere you can. In these conferences, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere. That's why we have the camera here, okay? This goes to YouTube. So, once you have that, you created all the hassle. Then, what is the last thing you need? Students. Now, that's a tricky thing. We have one very solid basis for what we are working from, and that's what I said previously. We have a couple of thousands of MBA students who we taught. They know what we do, they know what we are like, and if there are some of them who want more of that, not all of them, some of them. But with a couple of thousands, you can always have a couple of dozen who will be interested, and that's good enough. So you start recruiting the students. This is our main way. Those former MBA students, all the social media involved, and obviously we are approaching companies directly, because if you think about the whole idea of the strategic partner, there are companies who need a couple of these guys who work with the strategists and support their work. There will be many companies who don't need a strategic partner, so you don't want to sell it to everyone. It is a niche market that you define very well through your curriculum and through your background, which is in our case all those former MBA students and so on. So, recruiting, and I wish everyone that this is the end, that you need to say stop, we cannot do with more students, okay? hopefully that is what will happen sometime soon. So thank you very much for listening, and please Google us, find us on Facebook, YouTube, and so on, and ask questions if you have any. Thank you.